roof installations, the home battery storage systems, and EV stations. These are all high-efficiency fixtures and appliances that not only save energy, but they help reduce carbon emissions. We view them as an important part of our climate-smart San Jose. San Jose is a leading city in trying to fight greenhouse gas emissions and the use of carbon. You're going to hear increasing messaging about San Jose wanting to electrify dwelling units and encouraging use of solar. You can see the installations we're talking about tonight in our carbon-free living trailer. It's located by the rotunda, and it has several installations and gives you an idea of how we can achieve zero net carbon buildings. And with that, we will learn some things about heat pump water heaters from Ron Davis.
So we're going to talk about heat pump water heaters. I like to look at them like magic water heater because it takes refrigerant, pulls warm air out of the room, whether it be the garage, the house, wherever the water heater is located, and turns that into hot water. So it works basically by, it uses electricity, it pulls warm air in, exchanges that in the hot water or in the water to make it hot, and you have hot water from that. So it's highly efficient. The Energy Commission is recommending that these be put in everywhere now. Actually, we will be seeing more and more of these installed because of their high efficiency. Yeah, heat pump water heater will affect the, well, in most cases will affect the electrical supply. It requires a 30 amp circuit, and it's a 240 30 amp circuit that will have to be pulled from the panel, and that will typically require an electrician to come and do that work for you. One good thing about heat pump water heaters is that you eliminate the flue. It actually serves to cool the space it's in because it pulls the hot air out of the room. So it's a dual purpose device. These are allowed for alterations with specific conditions. In other words, if you're doing an alteration to your property, an addition, a remodel, and so on, they can be installed in that case. Electrify San Jose heat pump water heater incentive program, that's coming soon. We're going to have a meeting next week to talk further about that, but it will be an incentive program that will pay a portion of the cost of the water heater and possibly a panel, not possibly, and a panel upgrade. And that will be based on income level. There will be different programs based on income level and ability to pay. Solar installations. So now we're going to turn it over to Bruce, let him talk about solar panels.
Good evening. So solar panels, solar installations, we've literally seen thousands of these installed in San Jose. Expect to see thousands more installed over the next few years. It's a pretty commonplace these days to have solar on top of your roof. So we have a bulletin for this. It tells you about how to go about getting a permit. These permits are available online if you meet certain conditions in terms of weight and height above the roof and so forth. So it's a pretty simple process to pull the permit as long as you're not exceeding the weight limit and the height above the roof of 18 inches. Depending on the size of your system, again, you might be required to upgrade your electrical service to accommodate the utility interconnection of the output of your solar system. It depends on the size of the solar system and what your existing service panel looks like. We recommend you hire an experienced contractor to put in your solar installation. So again, I stated online, you can save money. It's a little bit less expensive to pull a permit online. It's efficient. You can also schedule the inspections for these online as well. And if you go 18 inches above the roof, it's going to be required to come in for structural plan review because of the wind uplift issue, because now it puts a reverse load on your roof when it gets windy. So once you lift above 18 inches, you're going to have to bring this into a structural plan check. Electrical plan reviews conducted in the field by the field inspector. But you do have to have a complete set of electrical plans when the inspector shows up with cut sheets, calculations, and so forth. So now we go to, we're making this energy on our roof, but right now if I don't have some kind of a storage system, I can only use it during the day, right? Because at night my solar panels aren't doing anything. So this technology has improved greatly in the last few years. It used to be big racks of car batteries in your garage. Now they have a lot of lithium-ion products. Much more efficient, much smaller, and safer. And so we have ways to store this energy. These two pictures show two different systems. They look almost the same, don't they? It's a bunch of electrical equipment attached to the side of my house, right? Well, these two systems operate differently, and we're going to talk about which one's which and how they store energy and how the energy is utilized. They may or may not provide backup power during an outage, and systems may also be programmed to shave peak rates during peak rate hours, right? These systems are pretty sophisticated, and they can be used not only to store energy, but to back up during a power outage and to reduce your electrical rates when in the summer when I'm running my air conditioner and the rates go high, right? So, two most common types we see are hybrids and AC batteries. A hybrid is one that's associated with your solar PV inverter. So the same inverter that converts the DC current that's on your roof to AC power for use in your home converts the DC power from the battery storage system for usage in your home as well. But it is related to a solar inverter. So that's inverters doing two things. The advantage is they're economical, pretty easy to install. They can be added to existing solar systems. Some of the disadvantages are some may not be able to function as a backup system. And these systems are usually not suitable for what would be considered an off-grid installation. They usually require some connection to a utility. Alternating current battery, that battery has a built-in inverter that puts out AC current right out of the battery. These can be installed either by themselves, they don't need a PV system, or they can be installed in conjunction with a PV system. Advantage, they're simple to install. They're pretty easy to add to an existing system. System can be added onto, expanded if you will. And the disadvantages are some of these AC batteries also cannot function as a complete backup supply. And again, these are really designed to have a utility connection and not to be like in an off-grid installation. These do require structural plan review, so because they're quite heavy, they weigh anywhere from just under 300 pounds to upwards of 900 pounds, depending on what battery you pick. So they're heavy, so we require structural plan review for the anchorage of these batteries. In case there's an earthquake, you don't want this thing flying around in your garage or the side of your yard. We still do the electrical plan review for these systems in the field. So the field inspector will come out and do the plan review in the field. So when we come out to do the inspection, you need a complete set of electrical plans, cut sheets, installation instructions, calculations, and so forth. Very similar to the solar installation. Electric vehicle charging stations, kind of the next logical thing, right? I'm going to put PV on my roof, I'm going to put a battery on the side of my house, and now I'm going to use that to charge my car. So basically, for single family residents, there's two types of battery charging systems. There's a level one. Level one is just basically I bring my car home and I plug it into the three-prong receptacle that's in my garage or my laundry room or the outside of my house, and it's gonna charge my car. It's gonna charge it pretty slow though, right? 3 to 5 miles per hour, something like that. It's not too fast of a charge. If I just bring this home and plug it into an existing receptacle, I don't need a permit. If I install a new receptacle for this purpose, then I need a permit to install that new receptacle. Level 2 charging system is 240 volt. These can be 30 amps to 40 amps, all the way up to 100 amps. There's some fast chargers that go to 200 amps. But as we've been talking about, these, if I put this extra load on my existing main panel, I'm gonna need to do a load calculation, and I'm gonna need to determine if my existing electrical panel will support the added load of these EV charging stations. Some are adjustable. They can be adjusted anywhere from 20 to 100 amps, right? Depending on where I adjust that, it's gonna impact my existing electrical service quite a bit. So again, these permits can be pulled online pretty easily. We come out to do the inspection, no plans are required, but we're gonna ask for a couple of things. We're gonna ask for the installation instructions for the EV charger, because all products have to be installed per their installation instructions. And we're gonna ask for a load calculation if your service is 125 amps or less, because we wanna make sure that your electrical service has the capacity to support this added load of the EV charging station. And there's a bulletin for that online, Bulletin 263, and it describes that process for pulling a permit and the load calculation. So that's it. You have questions about these energy saving products and systems?
Are all those incentive program approved so we can take advantage of it, or is still in the planning stage? That's my first question. Second question is, I have a permit to remodel my house. It's a major remodeling. And now we are all of a sudden we are thinking of adding solar panel to my house. Do I need apply a new permit, or since the roof, the solar system, all will be new, we don't need apply permit?
Well, you still need a permit for the solar system, and most solar installers aren't going to want to take on the responsibility of some other aspect of construction. They're usually going to want you to pull a separate permit because they only want to be responsible for their installation.
I have two questions also. With the battery, does the battery have to be inside the garage, or can you put it outside in a enclosure or something like that? And the second question is, I'm changing my roof, so is it easier or harder to, like, when I'm changing my roof, to do the solar, or?
Okay,
How's that
so
work?
first question is, can the battery be mounted inside or outside? These battery systems can be mounted inside or outside. Just be advised that if we're mounting them outside, there's still some clearances from property lines. If you have a driveway down the side of your house, they have to be protected from physical damage. If I'm mounting it inside my garage, again, I have to make sure I'm mounting it where it's not gonna hit it with my car when I'm coming in and out of the garage. So you wanna take into account the spatial requirements. I think the perfect time to put solar on your house is when you're doing a re-roof, because your solar installer can coordinate with your roofer and they can make those penetrations really well. Whereas if I'm coming to an existing roof, now I'm making penetrations through my roof into an existing roof, right? Yeah, where they put the supports for the solar, right? Because those attach to the structure. They go through the roof, actually. So those have to be properly flashed.
I have a 200 amp service and a solar panel already in the house. I would like to get a second meter. Would I be able to split it 150 and 50 amps, or does it have to be evenly split? The 200 amp service panel that I already have.
Well, my first question would be, what is the second meter for?
For strictly EV charging,
For an EV charger?
yes.
So you are allowed by the utility to get a second meter for an EV charger. You have to get approval from them first, right?
Yeah, but I don't want to lose I need at least 150 amps in the house. I don't want
Sure.
to split it 100 and 100. So my question is, can I split it 150 and 50?
You could, yes.
Okay, so is that up to PG&E, or is that up to the city?
Well, you'd still want to do a load calculation to make sure that your 150 is supporting your existing residents and that your 50 is going to support your car charger. But it would work. You could split 2 meters and put in two panels, one at 50 for the EV and one at 150 for the main residence.
Okay, thank you.
I have a roof that doesn't have a whole lot of sun on it, but I have a driveway that has a great deal of sun on it, and I'm wondering, can I like build a structure for solar panels down my driveway and not call it an ADU?
Yeah, you can. Not going to be able to pull that permit online. You can build a standalone or non-roof mounted solar system on a single-family residential property. You're going to have to get planning approval. You'll have to meet setback requirements, and then you'll have to have structural calculations for it and so forth. But yes, you can build a non-rooftop, a ground-mounted solar system, as long as you have enough room and you can get the structure done for it. Yep.
So is the
It's okay.
the solar storage system kind of like a power bank, like where you charge some like bank and then you take it with you and you can like charge your phone later without having to plug it into an outlet?
So was that question? Can I run stuff on my solar system without plugging into an outlet? Was that your
No,
question?
like when it's like dark or when you need to use the storage, like you can use it whenever you want without having to have the sun or a light source.
Could you repeat that question, Mike?
He's asking about solar systems using them as a way to use devices. But then he's asking also about the battery backup system.
So some solar inverters come with a receptacle on it so that if my power goes out, I can plug my refrigerator or whatever, my phone or whatever I want into it, and it'll just be run off the solar. So there are some inverters that come with some limited, call it capacity for when the utility disconnects, but it's only good during the day, right? It's not going to work at night. What was the other question?
How does he play games?
Like
Yeah, you can only
So-
do it during the day unless you get a battery.
so if
Then
you
you
have
can do it all night.
the power and the storage and the battery backup, you can use it without the sun and light sources.
So yeah, the battery
Yeah.
can work without the PV system.
I think he was just asking about the battery storage system, like that stores the power from during the day, and then say it's nighttime and the power goes out, you still have that battery backup, right? Is that what you're asking?
Good. One more.
Yeah, so my question was regarding the heat pump water heater. Would it not be best to install something like that up in an attic where you're going to capture the most heat?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's recommended that they're installed in the house. Attic would be a great place, at least in the summertime, to pick up excess heat. In the winter, maybe not so much. That's why they're saying, actually, the Energy Commission will only give credit for it if it's installed indoors. So that means in a garage or in the house. Not, they don't talk about unconditioned spaces. So attics, I don't think, are part of the acceptance process with that. So it would have to be in the house or the garage.
Okay, what about a basement? Is that included, or is that would fall in the same category as an attic?
I would think a basement would be an okay place. I would call that indoors versus an attic. Yes, I would think that would be fine.
Okay. And when do you anticipate the incentives coming out?
You know, you can go to the Climate Smart table in the wing here and talk to Leanna. She's actually the one that's going to be. Is it July? Yeah. Oh, you've already talked to them. Okay. Yeah, I should know that. But okay, so this gentleman says July that it will be available, and you'll want to apply quickly for that because it is a limited number that will be available. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Going along with the same questions, do these devices then fight your central heating system, or do they have shutoffs when your central heating's going, and so does that just run off of straight electricity as opposed to
No, I think that they interact, they work with those. I don't think you're going to be taking so much heat out of the room that the room would become cold.
I'm just thinking in the heater, or in the winter, sorry, are you
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think ideally they would be, they're obviously not going to sit in the room, in the living room, in the bedroom, so on.
Sure.
They're going to be in a closet, they're going to be in a laundry room, somewhere like that is probably not heated. And you're going to have ambient heat in that space that it will pick up, but it's not going to detract from the performance of the heating system.
Okay, and the incentive for you guys is for us to not use as much gas, use electricity instead?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Well, I know it's counterintuitive because we have gone down the path of using gas for everything we could and staying away from electricity, especially resistance heat. So we have reversed our position on that. The state has reversed its position on that, as has the city. Electricity is more readily available now. It's cheaper. Although it doesn't seem cheap, it is less expensive. It's more available because of the solar panels on everybody's roofs, and everybody's taking care of their own building and feeding back into the grid. So there's actually enough energy now that electricity is a viable alternative. And the reason that it's being promoted so heavily is that we can then reduce our carbon footprint because electricity is obviously cleaner than natural gas. So that's the big reason.
Is there a kit, would you guys know, I assume there's a kit maybe to connect the heat pump water heater to a heat pump heating cooling system at this time? Is there an integrated unit that takes advantage?
No, there isn't at this time, but I'm sure that's coming, because you could essentially have a separate condenser outside, a heat pump condenser that you would be able to run to pick up heat to heat your house, heat to heat your water heater. These products are being invented as we speak right now and being tested. So yes, in the future, I believe that will be the case. Right now, with a heat pump heating system, you can have a condenser and a wall unit in every room that you can control separately. Super efficient way to go. Once again, you're picking up ambient heat or cool from the air and using that to its fullest potential. So yeah, I think it's a great way to go.
My question is, I've been out there asking some folks about this. I'm going to put some solar panels up, and I'm just wondering, are the state and federal incentives still available to reduce the cost?
I don't know the actual answer to that because the incentives keep going. They're going to go away, and then they extend them for another 3 years. So I think your individual solar installer could probably tell you what's available, both from the government standpoint and from the utility standpoint, right? Because the incentives kind of come and go. I don't actually keep track of those. We don't keep track of the incentive programs. People who sell those systems should be able to inform you of those incentive programs.
On a heat pump water heater, is that 3-wire or 4-wire, 240 volt required?
Well, it'll be single phase 240 volt for a single family residence. It's typically a 240 volt 30 amp circuit.
So it takes 4 wires? Or
Correct. Yeah. 2 phase conductors, a neutral and an equipment ground.
Hi. I have two solar system on my roof, and one is for the electricity. The other one is for the water heater. And I have 2 tanks in the garage, and one is storage. The other one is a regular water tank. And my son wants to get rid of that storage tank and kept the solar system that heats the water heater. That wise to do on?
You're talking about a solar thermal system where you're getting hot water from that system. It might be wise to do if it's been up there for a long time, because they do lose efficiency, and they're, quite honestly, they're not very efficient to begin with. So the longer they're there, the less efficient they become. If you're still getting some benefit out of it, I wouldn't disconnect it, because it's free energy. You've got solar panels. You're getting free hot water from that. I wouldn't disconnect it unless there's a problem with it. Unless it's leaking or something's wrong with it, I would leave it as is.
No, he just wanted space.
Yeah.
Because
well,
it took
for it to work properly.
Storage tank is big.
Yeah,
and
for it to work
properly. Space for the dryer, and so the dryer has to go to the other side of the garage.
Yeah, and for it to work properly, the solar tank needs to be there. I mean, you have to have storage tank for a solar system, solar hot water.
So you wouldn't take it up?
I would leave it there, yeah. You're getting a good benefit from it. Yeah. And, you know, there are incentives on heat pump water heaters right now, federal incentives of $300 per water heater. So that's something that I didn't mention, but it is available currently, and something to take advantage of.
So referencing actually one of the earlier slides from tonight, I noticed on the side of the house they drew a geothermal heat pump. No, you're shaking your microphone. That's not something you're prepared to talk about at this point.
No, I am prepared to talk about it. That slide was representative of many types of systems, not something we'd see here. Geothermal is very, very prohibitive cost-wise, and it's not something you're going to see in a mild climate like this. It's something you would do if you lived in Montana and you were frozen half the year. You'd want to be getting as much heat as you could out of the ground. So that's, yeah, I apologize for that. That was my first comment when I saw the slide was, oh, that doesn't fit. But you're the only one that caught it so far, so good.
It sounded cool, but nobody was talking about it, so thank you for explaining.
Okay, that concludes our presentation tonight. Thank you for your interest. Again, the slideshow will be on our website. The PowerPoint itself is already on our website. The recorded version with the speakers will be up in about a week on our website, sanjoseca.gov/permit center.